Well, good evening, everybody, and we'd like to, on behalf of the South Coast Water District Board of Directors, welcome everybody here this evening to hear about our Doheny Desalination. And it's basically information meeting this evening. It's a posted public meeting, however, it's really for you, information on the project of the draft EIR. And at this time, I'm going to ask our legal counsel to come up and do the housekeeping items, so we're all staying somewhat consistent. Thank you. Here you go.
Thank you, Director Green. I'm Kari Vozenik. I am the legal counsel for the district with respect to this project. And what I'm going to tell you tonight is that this meeting is to accept your comments and questions on the project. And I wanted to let you know that we've advised the board not to answer these questions tonight. We want to hear your comments and questions. If you have simple factual questions, we might be able to get answers from the district staff or consultants, but the district board is going to just have a listening role tonight. So I want to let you know so you don't think that they're ignoring you. They're listening. We will take all of your comments and questions under consideration, and you'll get full responses in the final EIR. That's where we prepare and provide responses to the questions that you'll ask after this presentation. Thank you.
So at this time, I'd ask everybody to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And we're going to ask Director Dennis Erdman to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Dennis. Turn it over to Lewis.
Thank you. If I could have the panel join me up at the table now. Good evening, and thank you for coming tonight. I'm Lewis Michelson, and I will be serving as a moderator for tonight's public meeting on the South Coast Water District Doheny Ocean Desalination Project Draft Environmental Impact Report. I was hoping I could get through that in one breath. It's a long document too, so take your time. Please be advised that the district is recording and live streaming this meeting on YouTube for people who cannot attend tonight. And after it's live streamed, the recording of the meeting will also be available on the South Coast Water District YouTube page. Here to receive your comments tonight are Dick Shintaku, Acting General Manager. Want to raise your hand? There you go, for South Coast Water District. Mark Donovan, the Program Manager for the Doheny Ocean Desalination Project from GHD, and Kevin Thomas, Project Manager for the Environmental Impact Report from Kimley Horn. So he was the one up here directly involved in the preparation of the document that we're talking about tonight. Hopefully, and I know many of you did, took the opportunity to take advantage of the poster stations. Some of you came here a little bit early, and I think you spent pretty much an hour there, so good for you. And hopefully you got all the questions you had answered during that process. We had a lot of people available to answer them. The primary purpose of this portion of the meeting is for the panel members to listen to your comments firsthand. And to reiterate, this comment session is not designed as a question and answer session. However, in accordance with the agenda, a presentation is going to be offered first to orient you to the project until the public comment session after the presentation. If you did not already sign up, there are speaker registration cards. There are these blue half-page. They're available at the registration table. We're asking anyone who would like to speak to sign up first, and then I'll be calling on people in the order in which they signed up. The background presentation is going to be led off by Rick Shintaku and should only last about 30 minutes or perhaps a little bit less. With that, Rick, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Lewis. First of all, I want to thank everybody for taking time out of your busy schedules to come here and join us. It really makes a big difference, so thank you for doing that. So I'm Rick Shintaku, Acting General Manager for South Coast Water District. You did see or meet Mr. Bill Green, our president here, but there are also 3 other board members here. Director Dennis Erdman, Director Wayne Rayfield, Vice President, and Director Rick Erkeneff is here as well. So with that, I also want to credit Andy Brunhart, who is our general manager, and he played a large part in the planning this process and getting us to this point. Note that this is a milestone in the process, but no decision has been made. Moving forward, I'm stressing the importance of public involvement here. So at the front, you had a chance to get a blue card. If you haven't and you still wish to make a comment, please do so and fill out that speaker's card. You also have the opportunity to submit written comments, and those are the white sheets of paper that you see in the back. So please feel free to do that. And I'm a firm believer in public feedback. So as much feedback as you can give us, the better the project will end, or will be implemented in the very end. So as you will see in this presentation, the district's primary focus is to plan a highly responsible project that minimizes environmental impacts, and we'll get into some of the details of that. I don't think I took the clicker. Thank you. Okay, so this is what we're going to go through. First bullet, I'm going to cover the first two bullets: South Coast Water District introduction, and why reliability is important to us in the South Coast Water District area and South Orange County in general. Mark Donovan, who is our program manager, will go through the remaining bullets, which will be the project description, the CEQA process, draft EIR findings, draft EIR alternative study, and the public comment session. So this is the district service area. The black line border is our total service territory, and we also have a contract to serve South Laguna Beach as well. We serve approximately 8.3 square miles, and we have roughly 12,500 service connections. We provide potable water, recycled water, and wastewater service to South Laguna Beach and Dana Point, and a small portion of San Clemente and San Juan Capistrano. The majority of our service area is residential, approximately 35,000 residents, with the remaining uses being commercial and institutional, and as you know, a number of resorts as well. In addition to potable water and recycled water and wastewater service, we also have the contract, or we do the operations and plan the capital projects and implement the capital projects for the Joint Regional Water Supply System. So that, I don't have an exhibit here, but basically we manage over 30 miles of pipeline and 2 large reservoirs taking metropolitan imported water from about the Irvine border, so near that Kaiser Hospital where the freeway interchange, and we bring water all the way down through the north end of the San Diego County Water Authority service area, and we serve the state parks down there, the San Onofre plant area too. So we have that responsibility for the JPA. So where do we get our water? Well, as we get approximately 85 to 100% of our potable water supply from the Metropolitan Water District of California. And Metropolitan, in turn, gets its water from Northern California through the State Water Project, as you see here, and the Colorado River through the Colorado River Aqueduct here. And like I said, Met serves 85 to 100% of our potable water supply. So we're basically at the end of the pipeline there. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this slide. It's a very important slide for us, and I should have numbered these bullets, but it's basically a 5-pronged approach that the district has taken to sustainability, or 5 slices of the pie, if you will. So we have that proven track record of sustainability and making those investments, and I'll go through a few of these here. The groundwater recovery facility, it's a brackish water or a high TDS water, groundwater recovery facility using reverse osmosis technology to treat the water and to put it into our water supply system. It's approximately 1 million gallons per day, and we also operate the well, the production well that feeds the treatment plant. We've made significant investments in the second bullet in maximizing recycled water use. We put approximately 1,350 acre feet a year into the coastal treatment plant of sewage into the coastal treatment plant. We've invested in an advanced water treatment facility that treats the water to recycled water standards, Title 22 standards. And we've also added the Aliso Creek Reclamation Facility, which is a reverse osmosis facility to further polish that water and bring the salt level down. And that's used for landscape irrigation in our service area. So that's 1,350 acre-feet a year that we put in, and currently we're using 900 acre-feet a year. So we've been facilitating those retrofits with the end users, the HOAs, the resorts, the schools, the parks, city, et cetera. And they've done a lot of help in getting us to that point as well. And we have plans to retrofit more in the next 7 years to get up and fully maximize that 1,350 acre-feet a year. So that's the other prong. The third prong there is to maximize water use efficiency, so long-term water conservation improvements. So the district would like to take all the credit for that, but the customers are the ones who really have made the advances in there. So for example, during the last drought, the customers were able to save 26% compared to 2013 levels, 26%. That was on the higher end of the spectrum. But wait, what makes that more remarkable is fast forward to 2017, and the customers are still serving 20%, or still saving 20%. So there's literally no real bounce back in this service area. So it tells you about the conservation ethic in the area and the investments that these customers, whether they be business customers or residential customers, have made in their private side of their plumbing. So there's a lot of examples of water efficient dishwashing facilities that they've installed at some of these resorts. There's a lot of these resorts that have converted their turf to drought-tolerant plantings and artificial turf, even when the rebates weren't available. So they've made those investments and have been really progressive thinking and really showing that water conservation ethic moving forward. So conservation has, I have an interesting metric for you as well. So over the past 25 years, the district's population increased by approximately 10%, but the drinking water demands have dropped by over 30%. So that tells you the conservation ethic in this community, and we really appreciate that on the district side. It's kind of a unique business model. We pay folks to conserve water, and that's something that the district and the board have provided that leadership moving forward. So the other thing that we're proud of is minimizing water system losses and customer leaks. So South Coast Water District has approximately 2 to 3% water losses, so unaccounted for water in the system. For those who aren't in the water industry, that's very low. That's one of the best in the region, locally and statewide as well. So we've also substantiated that or validated that by doing 2 water audits, third-party water audits, to validate that 2 to 3% level, and it validated that we are actually minimizing our water leaks in our system to that level. So it's something we focus on, and the district has also, on the customer side of the meter, invested in automated meter reading technology. So on a daily basis and weekly, we meet up as a staff to see what water leaks are apparent on the private side of the system. So many of you who live in our district will get those notifications right away, and the customers overall have been diligent in repairing those leaks right away. So on the private side, we've also minimized water leaks as well. So, and the last prong there is partnering with the Santa Margarita Water District on their San Juan Watershed Project. So that's a stormwater capture project in the first phase, and it's a rubber dam concept where it takes stormwater, captures, or the rubber dam will actually stop the water and recharge the groundwater basin. And the South Coast Water District Board has made a 20% commitment partnership in that project. So we do participate in stormwater capture as well. So that's our 5-pronged approach. But after that, after all those investments, we're still dependent on metropolitan water for our potable water supplies. So we're still 85 to 100% dependent on Metropolitan Water District for our potable water supplies here. And that's approximately right now 5,500 acre-feet a year. So that's one of the reasons why we're looking at alternative water supplies. So that's what you're looking at is a map of potential fault locations in the state and the vulnerability of our statewide water system, which I think the majority of you are familiar with, from the Northern California aspect as well as the Colorado River. And I'm going to drill down into the next exhibit, which is a little more telling. So Metropolitan receives its water at that Demer filtration plant near that number 1, and that's where it's treated and sent down here to South Orange County. You can see the fault lines on this exhibit, the Whittier Fault being the most northernmost fault, Puente Hills Fault, Peralta Hills Fault, San Joaquin Hills Fault, and Newport Inglewood Fault. So basically 5 fault lines south of the Demer treatment plant heading to our service area, which is down in this area, down here. So that's the other reason why we're doing this project. And I'll go into the next slide. So you saw that slide, you saw the earthquake faults, the vulnerability, and what the region asked us to plan for is the potential for a 60-day outage from Metropolitan Water District. So you can imagine 60 days without water, and we're 85 to 100% dependent on Metropolitan for potable water, puts us in a really vulnerable situation. So what we did was MODOC took the lead for the region and did an Orange County reliability study where they looked at a number of water supply alternative projects for the region that would meet supply gaps during extreme drought periods, and would meet system gaps during a catastrophic emergency, such as an earthquake. So MODOC did that study, and we followed suit and did our own drill down South Coast Water District reliability study, hired the same consultant MODOC did, and they came up with this average supply shortage. So during a drought situation, South Coast Water District would need, on the average, 2.8 million gallons per day from an alternative water supply to assist us during that drought, or to meet that gap, the 2.8 million gallons per day. Keep in mind the project that you have in front of you today is a 5 million gallon per day desal phase 1 project, to put that in perspective. And on the system side down here, what we're looking at again is a 60-day outage from Metropolitan Water District, and what type of capacity of an alternative supply we would need is 3.9 million gallons per day. So that was what the study resulted in. I'm boiling it down to the results, and a lot went into it in terms of evaluating alternative supplies. But the big picture is that all of the alternative water supplies available that MODOC was looking at, Municipal Water District of Orange County, are necessary in Orange County. But what would best meet our supply gap needs and system gap needs is the Doheny Ocean Desalination Project. So that's why we are pushing forward on the planning for this project. Let me back up real quick. So what I forgot to mention, and what you'll see up there at one of the tables, is on top of that, once we finished the study, the board helped us, and we went out and solicited the public to have a public work group that would evaluate our water reliability situation in the South Coast District area. So that work group looked at the study itself. They had presentations and looked at other alternative water supplies, and they came up with a number of findings that also recommended that we pursue the Doheny Ocean Water Desal project, and that information can be found in that first table as well. So feel free to take some of that information on the way out. Early project history. So partner agencies, way back when MODOC took this project, it started way back in 2003. And a number of studies were done because of the whole slant well concept. And so back in 2004, 2005, they did a number of hydrogeologic studies, so studies of the groundwater basin and the aquifer adjacent and within the ocean. And this phase one included test borings in 2004, 2005 along Doheny State Beach. Phase two in 04 through 07 included the pump test for the slant wells and also a hydrogeologic or groundwater modeling model was developed during that period. And in 08 to 2013, yeah, we have a number of member agencies or partner agencies, I should say, back then that were working cooperatively with MODOC, Laguna Beach Water District, San Clemente, South Coast, San Juan Capistrano, Moulton Niguel, on phase three and looking at the actual slant well pump test along with the hydrogeologic model. So in 2014 through 2016, there were additional studies done on the hydrogeologic model, and that's where South Coast Water District came in and took the lead and continued with the planning for this project. And that's what you see in front of you, the 5MGD project that's being presented tonight. So once South Coast took it on in 2015, we initiated the conceptual design process. This is the preliminary design and the environmental document that you have before you tonight, or the meeting about tonight. March 2016, we kicked off the public scoping meeting. 2017, spring of 2017, we started the water reliability study that I talked to you about, and the results that we just saw on those slides. In the summer of 2017, we had the Water Reliability Working Group to vet through the study and confirm some of the results that the consultant came up with. November 2017, we had a second public scoping meeting, and June 2018, we actually released the draft EIR, and today is the public meeting, and comments are due by August 6th of 2018, so there's actually more than a 60-day period or a 60-day period that we wanted to at least give the public some time to review the document and provide us comments. So that's where we are. I'm going to turn over the presentation to Mark Donovan, who's our program manager right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick. Okay, so now we'll get to actually talk a little bit about the project, so where we are today. So the Doheny Ocean Desalination Project, the high-level project goals. So first and foremost, to provide a safe, high-quality, locally controlled, and drought-proof water supply while protecting the environment. Also, as Rick mentioned, for the project, we want to essentially just reduce dependence on imported water, not be so vulnerable to that water supply, and also be able to continue to provide water in the event of an emergency. The project components. So essentially, starting at the beach, we take in the ocean water with a subsurface water intake system. And then once we collect the water in the slant wells, we need to convey it to the district site. So we have a raw ocean water pipeline that would deliver the water to the plant site. And then on the district's owned facility adjacent to San Juan Creek is where the desalination facility would be located. And also at that location is where we would dispose of the brine, the RO concentrate, by blending it through an existing wastewater outfall. Also at that location would be a drinking water storage tank and pumping system to deliver it into the local communities. And then also at the site, all typical support facilities, administration building for the workers and the staff, on-site small lab, things like that. And then also off-site electrical transmission facilities would be needed to bring SDG&E power to the site. All right, now we'll take a kind of a closer look at each of the main components. So the subsurface water intake system. So Rick had showed some of the project history, and a lot of that project history was really studying and verifying that slant wells could work on Doheny State Beach. So based on all that successful testing, the district has committed to moving forward with a subsurface intake. And that intake method is preferred by regulators and by the California Ocean Plan Desalination Amendment. It's a very important aspect. You know, we're lucky enough to have the favorable geology there at the site. And so what that does is, you know, by doing subsurface, we're not impacting any marine organisms out in the ocean, unlike a traditional open water ocean intake. So that's a very key feature of the project in terms of the environmental benefits. The slant wells will be fully buried, either at Doheny State Beach or Capistrano Beach Park, so there'll be no visual impacts for the slant wells. And then also submersible pumps would be located well down into the wells themselves, so no noise impacts as well from the slant well intake system. So what we're looking at here is kind of you see these various letters down at along Doheny State Beach, A through E, and then down at Capo Beach Park you see F, G, and H. So these are potential locations for slant wells to be located. So for the first 5 MGD facility, it would require most likely up to about 4 wells, and those 4 wells could be located at any one of those locations, probably 2 pods as we call them. Essentially, wells could be built anywhere within that A through H locations. And we're going to really let the EIR run its course to help us determine where the best course is to put those wells, because there's pros and cons for each of those well locations that, you know, Kevin will talk a little bit more going forward. In terms of the raw water pipeline, we kind of boiled some previous studies down to 2 main alignments for the pipeline. A northern pipeline alignment, which would run along Dana Point Harbor Drive and then Del Obispo, and then it would cut across under the creek over to the plant site. But the preferred alignment is actually the south alignment, where it would run through Doheny Park Road and go under PCH, and then cut across Las Vegas Street over to the site. And the majority of the piping would be open trench, and it would be in existing streets or other disturbed areas. So the blue lines indicate where it would be open trench pipe. And the yellow lines, for example, under the creek or under the railway, is where it would be trenchless, so like a horizontal type HDD drilling type of procedure. So give you an indication of where the potential pipelines may be routed. The pipeline material would be most likely HDPE. So this pipe not only suitable for compatible as far as seawater, for corrosion of seawater, but also it's a very flexible pipe material. So it would be resilient towards earthquakes. So it would be, you know, if earthquakes did hit, that pipeline would most likely be fine, and would be able to keep the desal plant running and functional. Okay, so the desalination facility itself. So this is a conceptual rendering of what the desalination facility may look like. And in this rendering, we've actually sized various components for the 15 MGD facility. So the district may choose, if the project goes forward, to build certain parts of the project to 15 MGD just to allow expansion to be easier. For example, the RO building may be built for ultimate capacity, but only 5 MGD worth of desalination equipment may be placed in it. And really just to make future expansions less costly. You see also that there's solar panels located on the RO building and other flat surfaces. So we've envisioned that solar panels could be used where feasible on the project. The site itself, we did a flood inundation study and recognized that that site is susceptible to flooding, both from water coming down San Juan Creek and also from ocean storms and things like that. So one of the obvious solutions and alternatives is to simply raise the grade of that site. The site's fairly undulating right now. Some spots are high, some spots are low. So really leveling it out, bringing it up to protect the site from flooding seems to be the most logical choice there. A couple other components here on the facility site. We have carved out an area, a small area, what we call the R&D pad. So if the project does go forward, the district would like to use this facility as a showcase and a test bed to test new technologies, refine the operations and optimization of the plant going forward. So that's something that the district has expressed an interest in, so we've carved out some footprint on that to make sure the district can stay at the forefront of desalination technology. So once the water is processed through the facility, roughly for every 2 gallons of seawater that you bring in, you'll produce 1 gallon of drinking water, and then you have 1 gallon of concentrated brine that you have to dispose of. This site is fortunate enough to be located very close to the J.B. Latham wastewater treatment plant. So there's an existing ocean outfall that goes 2 miles offshore, which currently discharges municipal wastewater to the ocean. So we would simply blend the brine into the existing outfall, and it would be diluted with wastewater as it goes to the ocean. So this also is one of the preferred methods by regulators and in the California Ocean Plan for the desalination amendment. And actually, in the all likely operating scenarios for phase 1, the blended brine and wastewater would actually be less salty than the ocean by the time it reaches the diffuser portion of the outfall. So those are the main project components, and with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kevin, and he'll talk more about the EAR details.
Thanks, Mark. Again, my name is Kevin Thomas with Kimley Horn. I've been working with district staff the last 2.5 years on this environmental process. I just wanted to quickly walk through the CEQA process, California Environmental Quality Act, and some summary of findings from the EIR. We're not going to go through all 3,000 pages here, I promise, but we'll cover some highlights. I think really from Mark and Rick's presentation, they covered most of the environmental issues in the project design process. So I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly, and then, of course, as Kari mentioned, the primary purpose for tonight is not to answer detailed questions, but really to give the public an opportunity to comment. We'll have a court reporter here recording your comments if you've submitted a speaker card up here at the podium. You can submit written comments. There's comment cards in the back. We highly encourage, even though we have a court reporter, we'll be taking notes, we highly encourage you to submit written comments. You can submit comments online at the district website, and you can mail in a letter. So there's a number of ways to participate in terms of submitting a comment. As Rick and Mark both mentioned, we've had a number of public scoping meetings the last couple years, both in March of 2016, November 2017. We've been meeting with stakeholders periodically over the last couple years, and we're right now in the middle, I'm not sure where the highlighter is. So right now we're during about 30 days into the draft of the year public review period. As Kari mentioned, we will receive all written comments, oral comments from the court reporter. We will prepare written responses to comments. Those written responses to comments, together with the draft EIR, will be part of what's called the final EIR, and that will be available to the public before the South Coast Board considers the EIR and the project. So you'll be notified of that date in advance. Again, just to walk through a few of the primary findings. This is not intended to be comprehensive, and so please refer to the EIR for details. But in essence, the draft EIR found that the phase 1 project up to 5 MGD would not have any unavoidable significant impacts. What that means is there are some significant impacts, but they can be mitigated either through mitigation measures or through actually project design features. And one thing I think that Mark mentioned, a great deal of work has gone into this project by the district to essentially design the project to avoid impacts. So the reason the presentation was a little bit long on the project and the history is to provide that context. So we've been meeting with stakeholders, regulators. We've made a number of changes to the project. We've shifted the slant wells back off the beach to avoid impacts to the beach. We've moved slant well locations based on stakeholder comments. We've identified another potential intake location that Mark pointed out at Capistrano Beach Park, just as an alternative. We've actually shifted some of those slant well pods within Capistrano Beach Park based on talking to county parks. So really the project has been designed to meet ocean plan requirements and really avoid, where possible, all the impacts. The EIR does look at a potential future regional project. up to 15 MGD. That is not evaluated at project approval level of detail in the ER. There's just too many unknowns right now. So if that project should move forward in the future, it would require separate public process, separate CEQA process. Really, the district's focus right now is on the phase 1 project. And as indicated, there's approximately 40 mitigation measures in the EIR on top of project design features to avoid or minimize potential impacts. I'm going to just click through these a little bit quick because, again, a lot of this has been covered, but just to summarize some of the main topical areas. With respect to recreation and aesthetics, really the primary impacts, at least on the coastline, will be all temporary at Doheny State Beach or Capistrano Beach Park. We've minimized those impacts by talking to state parks and county parks, essentially moved the majority of the construction staging off the beach to this San Juan Creek property on the other side of PCH. As I said, we've shifted the slant walls back, limiting the construction periods, and of course all the required coordination with all the stakeholders. Relative to noise, air quality, and traffic, again, the construction-related impacts would all be temporary. The operational equipment that would be louder would be inside enclosed buildings, primarily the reverse osmosis pumps at the district's San Juan Creek property, inside the building you see there on the bottom. There'd be no significant odors in the facility. It's a water treatment plant. And again, there's a number of mitigation measures identified, including use of trenchless technology, meaning not open trenching across sensitive transportation corridors like the railway, the PCH, and also underneath San Juan Creek Lagoon if that was needed, so to avoid those impacts. With respect to biology, cultural, and geology and soils, again, Mark pretty much addressed this. The entire project has been designed to meet Ocean Plan Amendment requirements through the subsurface intake wells, which avoids marine life impact, and as well as blending the brine with the existing ocean outfall, all to avoid or minimize impacts. I believe Mark also covered this. Mark covered a lot of my topics. That's good. So with respect to hydrology and water quality, again, the project has been designed really to minimize or avoid all these impacts to meet the State Water Resource Control Board's Ocean Plan Amendment requirements. There were a few questions during the poster session here, the informal part before the presentation on greenhouse gas emissions. So it's important to emphasize, as Rick did, the district's committed to what's called net carbon neutral. So essentially, if you look at the district's greenhouse gas emissions from its current water supply portfolio, importing water or using imported water, the district has committed to calculating the additional emissions created by using desalinated water, which is higher energy intensive, and then offsetting that incremental increase in emissions. And that would be through a number of features, rooftop solar where it's practical, using energy recovery devices at the desalination plant. The district's seriously evaluating using natural gas fuel cells for power, which essentially sequesters methane gas and removes that from the system, as well as other potential options. Mark also identified the R&D pad, which could be used to evaluate that. A number of other topics were evaluated in the EIR, growth impacts, land use compatibility, hazards. Those are all in the EIR in detail. One of the main topics often addressed or of interest for stakeholders is alternatives. So the EIR focused on these 5 alternatives, so you'll see that in the environmental impact report. In addition to these alternatives, I just wanted to highlight, as Mark and Rick did, the district partnered and looked at a number of water supply alternatives which were studied, of which the Doheny project was found to be the most ideal to meet the district's need. In addition, the district and then MODOC prior to the district has invested considerable energy in evaluating design options, which are reflected in the EIR. There's alternative water supply or ocean water conveyance alignments that are addressed in the EIR. There's alternative subsurface intake well locations addressed throughout the EIR. So those also were considered. But of the 5 evaluated in the EIR looked at supply alternatives, no project, conservation, and enhanced recycled water. Rick, I think, touched on those in his presentation. And then the EIR also evaluated 2 project design alternatives, a 3.9 million gallon per day alternative, and then also a slant well location alternative to focus the slant wells at the San Juan Creek Lagoon, which would enhance protection against seawater intrusion. So in conclusion, I wanted to reemphasize the close of the public comment period of August 6th and the variety of means to participate in the public process. And with that, I believe I'll turn it over to Louis.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you very much for your attention. That was a little over 30 minutes. I misjudged. You guys had a lot to say. And say it again and again, so we got it. Just poke you guys a little bit. Thank you very much. We are now ready to begin the comment session. If you've not done so already, these were the speaker cards that were available at the front registration if you'd like to speak tonight. Have there been any more turned in since then? Okay. So we don't have a large number of them. Just in time. Thank you. To ensure we get an accurate record, and that's really important in these proceedings, that's why we have the court reporter here. She just needs to be able to hear what you're saying. And so if you'll speak clearly and slow enough for her to keep up, if you've seen her fingers, they're really, really fast. But it is possible to talk too fast even for her. So what I'd like to make sure is speak clearly and slowly. If you represent, give us your name if you would. If you represent an organization, you'd like to mention that, please mention that as well. Each person is going to have 4 minutes to speak. If you have a written statement and you would like to turn it in the registration table, you can do that in addition to. But if you're going to read it out loud, sometimes people have very long written statements and they start reading and don't realize they're going to take 10, 20 minutes before they're done. So I need you to keep within that 4 if you would. Please honor any requests I make to stop, and to make it really easy, I do 2 things. One, I call on the names ahead of time. That way we don't have to have a big long queue of people waiting to come up. You'll know when your turn is going to come. That makes it a lot more comfortable, I find, for most people. The second thing is it's hard to know when you've spoken for 4 minutes. So when you've spoken for 3.5 minutes, if you make it that far, some people don't, I'll just hold up a very simple sign. So if you'd be addressing the panel and me and kind of keeping track of that, that will help it go really smoothly. And then when the 4 minutes is up, I put up that sign, and then we're done. And then it's time to move on to the next person. So the people I have signed up to speak so far, and I'll apologize if I mispronounce any of these names, Richard Bannister, Melissa T.W. Hurd, who may or may not choose to come up. She was kind of on the fence about whether...
That actually doesn't apply to this, that's me, and that really should go in the other box. It's
All right, so you're good.
environmental related. So
Okay, perfect. So you're going to pass on that. Got it. Thank you very much, Melissa, for letting me know that. Richard Gardner, followed by Langer Marcus, then Robert Cantor, and then Tony Nelson. So first up is Richard Bannister. I'm sorry, I did not make that clear. Here's the lectern, and there's a mic, and it should be live, and you will hear yourself loud and clear.
Okay, my name is Richard Bannister. I'm a resident of Dana Point. I represent myself. I won't be here anywhere near 4 minutes. I have 2 questions. The first question is there going to be any redundancy provided between the groundwater facility and this new facility? In other words, if you got the filters that go out in the new one, can you run salt water into the other facility and vice versa? Will we be able to use that groundwater facility? And my second question is there any new technology that's not been used anywhere else that's going to be used in this plant?
Great.
And that's it.
Thank you. Well, those will be in the record, and they'll be responded to. So thank you very much for that. Next up is Richard Gardner.
Richard Gardner from from Capistrano Beach, longtime supporter of the district. I'm not going to try to collect all my thoughts at this time, but maybe make a couple of comments. One is, it's very obvious to me that we're trying to do the right thing. We've got slant wells, we've got the combined outfall, but we have a miniature plant None of the other plants on the California coast are this tiny. In Carlsbad, the only way in which a fairly economically feasible facility could be built was to have the San Diego County Water Authority become the lead agency and provide the water to all of the member regional. So it was made clear early on that none of the other partners wanted to participate with South Coast. And so I thought that meant we needed to find partners, or we needed to have the support of a larger entity. So that's a comment. Same is true in Huntington Beach, which that plant, if it goes forward, it'll have to go forward with Orange County Water District and perhaps MODOC also involved. So I'm interested in what we're doing there. The second thing is, I don't personally, I think you should have one whole chapter or a column or a appendix that says, what are you, South Coast Water District, going to do for the people who live in our area above and beyond just providing water that we're going to pay through the nose for? So will we have a trail along the creek? You're going to build obviously many millions of dollars of a facility. Will people from Capo Beach be able to come across and go to the creek or go down to the beach? Will we have coastal access in your project? So I don't think I heard anything outside of, you're afraid we're going to lose our water sources and you're going to build a desal. And it's going to be a little one that'll just supply the people of South Coast. My thought is say I live in San Juan Capistrano and they have the earthquake. Are those people all going to go dry up there? And we're going to be out on our slip and slides and enjoying the same levels of water use that we did? That doesn't work. What about the people of Laguna Niguel? How are we going to move this water? Do we have an agreement? I don't think it's there. I don't see it in this design. Can you supply this water to Santa Margarita Water District? So that's just a kind of the start. This is a beginning. If somebody asked you, can you build an ocean desalting facility on 30 acres next to the beach? The answer is yes, of course. But the rest of the situation needs a lot of work. So that's a start.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Linger Marcus.
Good evening. My name is Marcus Langer, and I'm a resident of Capo Beach. I'm also a federally appointed expert on water reuse, so I will be talking to you not necessarily as a layman. I have quite a few questions about it. One of them that's been browsed over quite nicely is the energy consumption. This plant uses a massive amount of energy. I don't think the public really understands energy the way one needs to understand to see this. Also, I understand the premise of this is water safety. So since, 90% of the water is being imported, we import 100% of the energy. So while it's kind of uncomfortable to be without power, it is deadly to be without water. Why on earth would you trade that security and have somebody be completely dependent on power that you have to bring in? This is not a smart idea. Second of all is the slant well. It's never been done, period. And we all know that. So you're basing a lot of data on something that hasn't been done. And I'm talking as an engineer. So the environmental impact study and all of it has been done on an incomplete set of data. That is also a problem. Now, I'm not against desal, but I am questioning the wisdom of going straight for the most expensive way to make water, period, 10 times more expensive than anything else, when we're not looking at gray water, we're not looking at water reuse, we're not looking at a lot of things that we need. And if there is an emergency, what makes you think you have power but not water? Furthermore, if there is an emergency, we don't need that much water. All you need is water to drink and maybe take a bath. You don't need that full amount of water. Not everybody's going to go on. If there's like buildings destroyed, no power, no water, all you need is water. And Richard Gardner brought that nicely up. We should then need to share the water. So while I'm absolutely in favor of diversifying our water security, I think going for the most expensive thing right away, just follow the money. Who's going to make money selling us the energy that it needs to run this plant, leave alone the enormous cost of building that? I am really questioning the project. I'm questioning environmental impact. You cannot make a statement there is no environmental impact, especially since you don't even have all the data. That is not very serious. And I'm sorry to say that as a ratepayer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker is Robert Cantor.
Yes, I'm Robert Cantor. I'm a resident of Dana Point. First of all, I'd like to commend the district for having the foresight to plan ahead. I think it is prudent, and I think we owe you a debt of gratitude. And although a couple of the comments I'm going to make have been touched on, I do have concerns that we get through this entire process, we build a plant, and in fact, we don't have a plan B for some of these areas that I am concerned about. The brine impact is number one in my mind, and it has been a problem historically at other desal plants around the world, but particularly along our coast. And so what my concern is that we have an outfall, and we have statements that say we're going to dilute it with the wastewater, and it's going to be fine. Well, I'm one that is show me, and don't just give me calculations, but show me. And what if it doesn't work? You've got a plant that's already built. So I'd like to hear something in the environmental document that deals with contingency, and that is, what do you do if you can't dilute the brine? I'd also like to see some alternatives looked at that are ways to dispose of brine that are not in the ocean. And there are those technologies that have been used throughout the world, in the Middle East particularly, where they have actually done treatment on land and disposed of it in a different form. So I believe that's important. The previous speaker talked about energy. Well, I'll talk about it in a little different sense. We've talked about being carbon neutral. CO2, this is such an energy intensive process that we are going to be generating a lot of carbon. And I would like to make sure that the district has a way of, if you will, guaranteeing that they're going to be net neutral, carbon neutral. So how do we as ratepayers get that assurance? What is there going to be that holds the district to the feet to the fire if in fact we can't come up with a way of carbon neutrality? So those are my two comments, main ones, and I thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The next and as currently stands last speaker I have signed up is Tony Nelson, if I'm reading this correctly.
Good evening. Tony Nelson, Capistrano Beach. I'm also the founder of Capo Cares. We're an advocacy group for Capistrano Beach, so our residents are going to be very impacted by this. We are very conscious of the fact that we're right on the coast. Many of us live right on the bluff, on the Palisades. We're very concerned about the impact on Capistrano Beach Park, on Doheny Beach, where we all surf and enjoy our lifestyle. So this is kind of scary stuff to us. I'm by no means an engineer. I don't know anything about water other than I drink it and bathe in it. But the residents have some questions, and some of them have been communicating to me about some of their concerns. So I'll try to deal with them briefly. A big concern seems to be the idea of all this brine being deposited 2 miles offshore. We're very conscious in Dana Point that we have this very rich resource with all our beautiful whales that come by. I think we had 1,500 whales come by our coast last year. We don't want to do anything that's going to adversely impact them. And so we're concerned about that. I'm wondering why you're disposing of this 2 miles offshore. I know as boaters, that we can't even empty our tanks except 3 miles offshore, and I think most of us are a little more environmentally sensitive, and we actually pump our tanks. But that concerns me. That's a lot of waste and a lot of brine being put into this delicate ecosystem. So I'm worried about that. The other thing that has been brought up is why our little water district? You know, we represent 35,000 people, and we have a relatively small water district here. Why aren't we doing sort of a joint powers association authority with other water districts? Why aren't they all pitching in? Because as a couple of speakers mentioned, we will be probably required to share this scarce resource if there is an emergency. So shouldn't they also be coming to the table and participating in this project instead of all of it being a burden on our ratepayers? The other thing people have talked about is, again, the possibility of doing a joint venture with somebody like Huntington Beach. Like, why are we dotting all the way up the coast with different, I'm not sure how the technology works, but does that make sense? Or are we better off building one larger facility and creating some kind of shared resource? The other thing I'm concerned about as a financial person is and I talked to your CFO, who was wonderful, explaining to me about the various financial models that she's looked at and so on, and I'd really like to look at those. But I'm concerned that for ratepayers that many people don't understand that we pay for water through our actual water bill from South Coast Water District, but we also pay through our property taxes. So we want to know what's the total cost, what's the real impact on us financially. And my other main concern is, where can we visit something like this? I mean, we live in Capistrano Beach. We're going to all be impacted quite amazingly by this project. I'd like to be able to visit a plant where you've done this, where this technology has been used. I want to see what a slant well looks like. I want to stand by a plant and hear how much real noise comes out of it and how much smell and odor and whatever. I'm hoping that there really is no impact. I'm really, and I trust you that you're doing everything you can to mitigate that. But those are big concerns. And then finally, the impact on Doheny Village and on Capistrano Beach is really severe. So, you know, you're talking about, first of all, a huge honking concrete structure in the middle of, you know, at the back of Doheny Village, an area that we've been trying to revitalize. So that concerns us. The aesthetics, the noise, can you hide the building with some plants? You know, there are ways to make the plant be a little less obvious and a little more aesthetically pleasing. And I'm sure you'll look at those things. I just want to make sure you're thinking about us as residents. I'll be one more second. The digging up of Doheny Park Road, digging up Las Vegas, all of those things are significant to us. So I hope you'll talk to the community and include us as stakeholders, and I hope that you'll talk to our city council as well and make sure that we're all on board. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who's turned in a card since then? Oh, Ray. Ray Himstra is our next speaker.
Hi, Ray Heimstra. I'm the Associate Director at Orange County Coastkeeper. I'd like to say, first of all, it's refreshing to see a desalination plant that follows the guidelines from the state, so that makes my job a lot easier. I wanted to just bring up a couple things to your attention. One thing is on the issue of need. As we're all aware, the governor recently signed new legislation that's going to result in substantially reduced water use indoors. So that's something to just take into account. The MODOC numbers that were used are great, but they weren't predicated on that, so that's just something to think about. The other thing is what we've seen, and I heard here tonight, is on the greenhouse gas mitigation, is that would be incremental based on the idea that I guess it would replace water that's coming over the Tehachapi's. Maybe I'm mistaken on that, but I think we're all aware that the water is still going to come over the Tehachapi's. So, what our request would be to make sure that the plant is actually completely carbon neutral from its actual power use. That's just it for right now. We'll submit written comments by the deadline, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Ray. Is there anyone else who's been inspired to speak? by all of those great comments, and I mean that sincerely. I've done about 500 of these meetings over the years, and this is as good as it gets in terms of people making really relevant, pointed, factual kinds of questions that really relate to the project and relate to the document. So you've done a fine job tonight. I have to congratulate you on that. So if I'll ask one more time, is there anyone else who has been moved to speak? And if not, I just want to remind you of a couple of things. Again, thank you very much. These were very, very cogent comments. This concludes the oral comment session. The comment period, as was mentioned earlier on the draft environmental impact statement, will continue until August 6th. I think it was mentioned all the different ways you can provide written comments. You can still fill one out tonight at the written comment table. You can mail them in. You can give them online. All of those addresses can be found on the handout when you came in this evening. Please make sure we get them by the deadline. And again, thank you for your participation. We are officially adjourned. Thank you.